Hey there, folks. We're so excited to be coming to you live from reInvent. This is the Industry Live show from AWS On Air. My name is Jenna Pederson. I am a Senior Developer Advocate for AWS, and I have with me today Sam Coker, the Worldwide Tech Lead for Healthcare at AWS. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
For those of you watching at home, if you have any questions you'd like to ask us during the show today, you can tweet at the AWS On Air Twitter account. And if we don't get to them live right now, we will catch up with you afterward. So let's talk healthcare. Sam, you've been doing this for a while. You've been in healthcare for how long?
So I started working at Weill Cornell in 2003, running databases, cache databases, and interface engines, and then writing HL7 code and all that kind of fun stuff. So I have a few gray hairs. I've spent most of my career with inside New York City, so I got to go through a few hurricanes and some power outages and all sorts of fun stuff like that. I ended up at NYU. Running clinical engineering there. And then following Sandy recovery, I felt like I wanted to do something else. And so I've been here at AWS for 2.5 years, helping kind of make sure that those of us that come from a healthcare background, that our message is heard and that we understand what our customers are going through.
Yeah, that's so important. So it's 2020. All eyes are on healthcare this year. COVID-19 has been top of mind for all of us. What changes are you seeing in healthcare over the last year?
Yeah, I have never seen changes like this in my career, and I've never seen just the amazing of how people come together and how people have worked hard, both in industry, both in the clinician space, IT people, and everybody. It's kind of been, it's we've all kind of put our shoulders in. What we're seeing though specifically is kind of three areas where we're seeing some really accelerated impacts. The first is kind of not necessarily related to COVID. It's more related to the U.S. passing the Cures Act and some stuff overseas, but it's around the demand for interoperability. And by that I mean the ability to get information either inside the hospital or inside the organization between their systems, as well as demands by patients like myself or you wanting access to their data to give to third parties. So we've had some rule changes come into effect. I know in the U.S. here we have the ONC rule changes around FHIR and patient access, but we see this also in Europe as well. So there's been several rule changes around the NHS, around the demand once again for FHIR interoperability as a way to transfer data. So there's been a real increase in scrutiny around how we do this, but also around the privacy and how we make sure it's secure. The other kind of change we're seeing, and this we see accelerated by COVID, is deriving outcomes from big data. And that's a real kind of expansive topic and kind of one that's all over the place. But basically it boils down to delivering the right data at the right time in the right place. And this kind of started around work with COVID tracking. Like all of a sudden, all the states were allowed to do COVID tests without a doctor's orders, but at the same time, I had to report to the state health agency's status. So, but it's also kind of more tangible things, just like driving supply chain management issues, like is my PPE gear here? How do I decide when to order it? Yeah, and then finally, and this is the one I'm kind of excited about, is that it's driving is the changes in the way we deal with healthcare from a remote aspect. So it's like there's a demand for, and there's a need too because of COVID. You have remote visits, and that things we all recognize, like we're doing video visits with our doctors, but it's actually much more expansive because it's changing both just how you do outreach to people. Like maybe I don't want a phone call. Maybe I want to have a text, and I'll text my health system and say, hey, I need to make a new appointment, and then it should be seamless to the point that I make a new appointment, or let's say I burn myself and I'm like, I need to see this. I could take a picture of it, and then it might even transfer to a direct video conference. But it's also to be all these devices we have around us and real medical devices in the home, and how do we safely secure and get that data back? So I know that's a long-winded answer
Yeah.
to the question, but
No,
so.
it's all really important stuff. And
Mhm.
so these are challenges that we've seen. They existed before COVID-19. And COVID-19 is really just amplifying the solutions or I'm sorry, accelerating the solutions that we are putting in place for this. So you mentioned interoperability. Can you, before we dive into that, can you uh, explain what that is again?
Yeah, it's merely the easiest way is just transferring data between systems.
Okay.
And you're going to hear a term, and this view is we want a longitudinal view of my health record or your health record,
Yep.
so that I can see that, okay, I went to the dentist and I have these hospitals and I have this insurance. Well, there's these silos of data everywhere. So
Yep.
how do we make it available so that we can all so that my physician knows that my dentist prescribed this one drug and not to do that, or my
Yep.
specialist prescribed this other one. So that's kind of
Yep.
the goal.
Okay.
And so that's where we start. And it can
Sure.
either be within a single organization, like within
Yep.
your hospital, or it can be across multiple organizations.
Okay. So, how is AWS helping customers achieve interoperability in healthcare?
Yeah, so it's one of the areas that I kind of feel like we really highlight how our customers innovate, and our customers can can
Hmm.
can work with this. So what we're doing is we're trying to handle the heavy lift part. So the parts of, like, how do I get this system A to talk to system B, so that my either my hospital or my insurance provider can design the user interface and the experience that they want you to have. So then, there's the obvious mandates for things like fire. So, we will help write the interfaces, and we will provide the interfaces for you to securely connect through fire. Um, but it's also, once we have these pools of data, how do we derive insights from them? So, it's it's key around providing a secure and open interfaces.
Hmm.
So that's going to through like API gateway or fireworks or through Lambda functions. Then we're going to create these pools where we're going to create services like lake formation or glue to kind of like understand the data, index the data,
Hmm.
and then we can use machine learning to gain insights from the data, or to do reports, or gain from that. So
Okay. So, why is it so important? Why is interoperability so important to healthcare?
um, there's your as I kind of touched a little earlier, we have this goal of this longitudinal health record, this
Hmm.
view of you as a person through your healthcare journey.
Hmm.
And then you're going to hear terms like population health and stuff like that. What that really means is that as we move to how we deal with disease. So as we're moving from where I used to have a broken arm and I go in and get that fixed, or broke a leg or something like that, to lifestyle diseases where I have diabetes now,
Hmm.
or I have high blood pressure, that is a lifestyle maintenance thing. We need to track you through your journey much better, as
Okay.
well as encourage you to do things, or help you do things that help treat the disease. So that ends up meaning that you're going to wear a sensor now, or you have
Hmm.
sensors now that you wear. Well, there's information there. How do we get that back? And the importance of the interoperability is so that your clinician can pull all these streams of data together without a lot of noise, and actually just kind of deep dive and focus in on what specifically, how do we treat you. So,
Okay.
and we can dig into a couple areas, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking about deriving outcomes from big data for a while now, but we really haven't gotten very far. So, what is changing, and what are the results that we're seeing from those changes?
Yeah, so there's a couple big areas. So there's actual tangible results that, like, you see, but then there's also
Yeah.
back end results to help your clinician.
Right.
So it could be things like natural language processing. So, and I'm sure we've all been in this before, where we're in the doctor's office now, and the doctor spends so much time entering information into the patient health
Mm-hmm.
record, or the nurse entering information into the patient health record, and they're not focusing on you. They're not
Yep.
focusing on like the verbal cues that you see, even when you're maybe not being 100% honest with your doctor about, well, yeah, I ate that, or
Mm-hmm.
no, I didn't, and stuff like that. So we want, and the other, and this is a very significant problem that we had before COVID, and then after COVID, it's even worse, is physician burnout. In
Mm-hmm.
that the clinicians are being overwhelmed with so many streams of data and having so many tasks they have to do that it's overwhelming, and it becomes very stressful, and it's not why they didn't
Right.
enter this profession
Yep.
to do data entry. So one of the things is like there's no reason why you can't use natural language processing, so that you and I are in our clinician's office and there's a microphone. We capture the conversation. That then gets transcribed into the record. So your clinician may say something like, well, we want to increase your dosage by 15 milligrams on your Lipitor, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We can capture that, and then when the patient visit is over, the doctor or the clinician would sit down, look at their inbox in their medical record, and say, okay, well, we need to increase this prescription. So, and then automatically send out a new prescription out, or or transcribe that whole session in there. So that's the part dealing kind of like in office visits. But then interoperability also becomes important for like your in home visits, or for
Mm-hmm.
your home. So from your patient setting. So like you're at home, you want to you remember you have to change your appointment, or you
Yep.
got a test results in. There's no reason why you have to go to your computer and log into that. It's very easy to integrate into a, let's say, an Alexa device, and say,
Mm-hmm.
Alexa, you know, I need to schedule my appointment. There would be a skill that would work through that. So it's really important that interoperability comes in to allow you to interact with your care in the way that best suits you. And
Sure.
that could also be counteract on outreach. Like, I want a text to remind me that I go to the doctor's office. And
Yep.
then when I go to the doctor's office, I have an app. It recognizes that I'm here, checks me in, and then lets the doctor know I'm here. So,
Okay. So the last impact that you mentioned is that COVID-19 is changing how we approach healthcare. So tell us more about how AWS is helping with the financial burden.
yeah, so there is a huge financial impact
Mm-hmm.
going on, and it's not just from that our hospitals or our providers no longer, they've got the ICU wards full and no longer do elective surgeries. It's also a fundamental change in that it's COVID is driving cost around. For example, we need to build more ICU beds. We need to institute distancing inside the hospital itself, so
Mm-hmm.
we have to spread things out, as well as uh, you know costs associated with, we're moving to virtual care now, so that requires a whole infrastructure in
Right.
itself. So what we're finding and what we're hearing from both our payers and provider space is they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, we're having these other demands. We need to move funds from one area into the other to take care of these issues. So one of the things that they're coming to us and say is, we need to drive out as many costs as possible
Mm-hmm.
out of our infrastructure, out of everywhere that we
Yep.
can. And so that's things like, I no longer have the funds to stand up a whole new infrastructure or to build a data center.
Yep.
What I need to do is drive it down cost and do things like only use services when I need them. So that's one area.
Okay.
Um, the other one is coming to the concept of, how do you modernize your architecture?
Sure.
So one of the things that we've done a lot around lately is, and we've worked very hard with, is, for example, Epic on AWS.
Mm-hmm.
So we've worked with Epic, the healthcare provider in Verona, Wisconsin, to get our infrastructure validated to run Epic workloads on top of AWS.
Okay.
Well, that opens up some new possibilities that you didn't have before.
Right.
So in an Epic environment, you would have a complete DR. You would have a blue-green design. You would have a full full-on production environment, and then you have a DR sitting there waiting for your twice-a-year DR test,
Hmm.
or disaster happens and you have to fail over. Well, one of the things we've worked with is to develop a seed environment, a seed DR. So you have a smaller footprint there ready, waiting for your DR test or waiting for you have to fail over. And then it can, in the time that it takes to fail over, it can expand to 100% of capacity. So you have a footprint that is, it can be as small as 10% of the resources you
Yep.
need to run that full failover. But in that failover, then it's expanded in failover. And this is another area where you can drive significant costs out of the system with the same level of care,
Yeah.
or even in some cases better technology and better options. So
With the level of health, the healthcare compliance that we need to adhere to.
very good point. Yes, no, it is. All of our systems are designed around whether local laws, whether it's HIPAA or
Hmm.
GDPR.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it, security really is critical, especially
Yep.
in healthcare. I mean, we always say at AWS, security is job one,
Yep.
but it's more so in healthcare. I really believe that, and it's not just making sure that you design secure and safe systems, but it's also making sure that your patients feel secure putting their
Right.
data there. And that's such things as like, we allow encryption of your own keys. So that way, there's no way we don't look at the stuff anyway. But
Hmm.
if you encrypt with your own keys, there's no way anybody can look at it but
Hmm.
who you give access to.
Right.
I think those are critical.
Yep.
So
So this leads us to the change that we all see today, and that's really the move to remote health. And as a consumer, I see remote health as me being able to get into my physical clinic, the doctor. Instead of going to the physical clinic, I can actually see my doctor over a video call a lot easier, a lot quicker, with a lot less work. So, um, but the thing is, remote health is more than that. So explain that a little bit.
yeah, that was kind of the one of the hardest things I had to wrap my head around too.
Yeah.
It's more than just video visits. It
Right.
really it is a mindset change, and it's really allowing our patient members to reach out and be contacted in the way they want to be, and the easiest way to communicate. And
Hmm.
and there's a recent CDC report that actually was looking at this, that telehealth might have multiple benefits for public and individual health. I'm going to quote here just a little bit. During the last weeks in March of 2020, remote screening, management of persons who needed clinical care for COVID-19 and other conditions might have increased access to care when outpatient offices were closed and had limited visiting hours. They're seeing the increase of availability of telehealth services has reduced disease exposure for staff and members, preserved scarce supplies, and minimized patient surge in facilities. But it's also done more human things too. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about, like, if you're going through the process of cancer and you're going through cancer treatments, and it is, you may not feel good, you may
Hmm.
not, and if you can have as much of that as remote possible, including
Right.
check-ins and stuff, like visit with that, without you having to physically go to a
Right.
site. That's that's a light that helps in and of itself as well.
Yep. Yeah,
And
just
then
being able to stay at home in the comfort of your own home to have
right,
that visit. Yeah.
right, whereas like I think of before, you would have to get dressed, get out,
Right.
and if you're just not feeling good that day, that's
Yeah.
that's a terrible
Or if
burden.
you can't drive.
Right, right. You
Yep.
have to arrange access. Perfect
Right.
point on that. And
Yep.
we saw that. One of the ways we did kind of see that, and that's a good point to bring up, was that during COVID, we kind of had two demands come in around our first initial forays into remote health, and that was kind of managing the overwhelming calls coming in,
Hmm.
like with worried well, like you hear the news, did you catch COVID, did you do that, and what we're finding was that the phone systems were being overwhelmed. So that's a case where you can use a chat bot
Hmm.
to act as that first level of call. So we'd use like Pinpoint and Connect to take those first level calls. But you can do through sentinel analysis, or just by the questions you answer, you can then drive that so you can easily transfer that to a video visit like this or actually direct outreach. And one of the items that I found kind of most interesting in it's in one of our presentations uh, going on now is like with Metro Plus Health in New York. They are the city's insurance provider, so they provide low cost insurance to the residents of the city of New York. Um, they had a they came to us very early on in COVID. New York was kind of hit pretty hard early on, and they had kind of two kind of big problems. One was how do we reach out to patients that say maybe have dialysis treatments and we don't
Hmm.
want them to go to the hospital. We want them to go somewhere else. We want them to go a safer place without so they don't get exposure to COVID. How do we reach out to those people?
Yeah.
And then the other part was how do we reach out to people that may be home and not be able to get out? So are they getting their prescriptions on time? Are
Hmm.
they getting, like on the Meals on Wheels services we had, did they get their food? Is there a food emergency?
Right. Yep.
So, how do you reach out to those people that may not pick up a phone? And one of the ways we worked with and realized was that most people had texting
Sure.
capabilities.
Yep.
We're very used to it. So, that was one way where we worked with them, and they actually had a saying where they would reach out to their members, texting, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And then, depending on how they answered and responded, they would either be directly connected with an individual to get help, or just no, we're fine, or I need more prescriptions. Please work that out. And we actually got close to a 94% response rate on these texts, which is
Sure.
an amazing
Yeah.
campaign. And I'm going on about this, but this one I'm really excited about because it
Sure.
felt like we were helping people. So.
Yeah. So, are there any other ways that AWS is helping with remote health?
Yeah. So what we're finding, and once again, this is kind of how we work too.
Yeah.
Is that we want to work with like in this case a provider space or our
Yep.
payers or our state health agencies or ministries of health overseas, and you know they have they know how they want to reach out to people,
Yep.
but we want to provide the tools for them to reach out.
Right.
So you know things like Chime or engagement through Connect or Pinpoint, but also things like Alexa and Lex and integration of that. So you want to create as seamless transition as possible between
Hmm.
the different ways you connect. And I think that's where we create this concept of a digital front door,
Sure.
and we partner with with our customers, in this case, hospitals or
Hmm.
providers or software vendors, to help them enhance their own products instead of trying to throw something out in the world and say,
Right.
this is a monolithic thing you have to use.
Yep.
So
Sure. Okay. So you've been in healthcare a long time and you talk to a lot of our customers about what they need. So how can these folks that are watching today, how can they work with AWS to build and scale their healthcare organization and or to empower them to really deliver a patient centric experience?
yeah. And I think that's one of the, I mean, we kind of fall into this a little bit. You see reInvent's announcements, and there's all these new services coming out,
Right.
and
Yeah.
there's all these new things coming out, and it can be overwhelming. It really
Yes.
can be. And so there's a multi-stage approach we do with this, and we really want to see us as a partner with you in this journey. So it's going to be multiple stages. So obviously you can come to us and say, hey, I saw this service and I love it. I think this new comprehend medical is great. Let's implement it.
Hmm.
And that's one way to do it, and that's fine. But really the other way to do it is we have a system of partners that we use, both from healthcare ISVs all the way from the great big Deloitte's of the world to small little partners. But also we partner with ISVs. So like we work very closely with the Philips and the GEs and the Cerners of the world to integrate our solutions into their products, so that it can seamlessly interact with what you need. Philips is a perfect example of how
Yeah.
they've streamlined their AI/ML in a hybrid solution, so the PACS is sort of a through the area session. The other way is going to be such things as like marketplace. Um, you
Yeah.
know, one of the things that I find and that work a lot about my customers with is using the pre-made components in marketplace. Where let's say I work with a vendor like Veritas to do package net backup. So what it is, it's a pre-built quick start or pre-built uh, containerized version of the application already built for AWS, already secured. So all the heavy lift parts done, you just pull it down and install it and add your license to it. Uh, all the way from, like I said, from Veritas to
Hmm.
Citrix to all that, we do that, and that kind of helps the transition too. Um, then there's a large startup community that we always like to introduce
Yeah.
our customers to, which I think that's an innovative way that we work, as well as we do have our pro services community as well. So we'll work with partners or our pro services to help you develop something and help you get to place. And then finally, um, there's great partners like VMware, where you have VMware on AWS. You know VMware, you use it already now.
Yep.
What you can use VMware on cloud, it integrates into your same tools. It just looks like another data center, and then you
Sure.
use your same tools and move through that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So we're just about out of time here. So where can people find out more about what we're doing in healthcare? Where would you direct them to?
So head over to aws.amazon.com/health.
Okay.
Or Google search for us. That is the best place to get
Okay.
started. Talk to your account team;
Yeah.
they're happy to help you too, and they will bring you in at any time. But please just check out there. That would be a good place to
Absolutely.
start.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I think I speak for all of us when we were looking forward to what 2021 brings for healthcare. You can catch the rest of the AWS on air streams right here at the same URL. The next one that's coming up right after this is travel and hospitality. The rest of the schedule throughout reInvent includes keynote recaps, more industry live sessions, what's next sessions where we dig in deep with the service teams, customer interviews, and some game shows. So thank you all for joining us, and see you soon.